So on the topic of poverty and homelessness, would you say support a federal jobs guarantee or a universal basic income plan to effectively
Hmm.
eradicate poverty?
Yeah, no question at all. If you look at our website, we're pushing for a federal jobs guarantee. We're also pushing for housing as a human right. I don't believe any human being should be without work, without employment, without a livable wage, and without a roof over their head. As a high school teacher, I see it firsthand on a daily basis how housing insecurity, how food insecurity, how lack of a living wage impacts our students and their families. How can we expect someone to come into class and complete an algebra problem or recite Shakespeare when again they're starving, when again they're cold, when again they have health issues, so on and so forth, due to lack of housing, due to lack of a livable wage or job. So it's an extremely huge issue. So yes, we're directly pushing for a federal jobs guarantee. We're directly pushing for housing as a human right. Our campaign is actually going to go out to the streets within the next couple of weeks because we walked the district this past week. We walked 30 miles through the entire district, but we're actually going to be out in the streets for a 24 to 48-hour period with some wonderful individuals that are, advocates in addressing homelessness. And we're going to try to use our platform to further educate individuals on the issues that are faced.
All right. So I'm going to move on from the economic topics and move into some foreign policy. So I know that's not your typical wheelhouse, you're educational, and I definitely will get to that in a bit. But I just want to know, like, what is your stance on using the military-industrial complex for offensive purposes, and what would you do about
Mhm.
the ongoing conflicts all over the Middle East?
Well, definitely. I actually served 6 years active duty in the United States military, so I have, firsthand experience. And I believe that 100% of the time we need to end, this military-industrial complex. We need to end warmongering. We need to end the destabilization of other countries and nations for profit, and we need to select diplomacy anytime and always. We need to bring our troops home. And the amount of money that we're spending on our military in the name of patriotism, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. That money could go elsewhere in regards to education, in regards to our infrastructure, our social services. There's so much more we could be doing with the billions and trillions of dollars that we essentially spend on warmongering. So I'm 100% for ending of all wars. I'm 100% for, diplomacy. I mean, look at what's going on now in the Middle East. In a sense, I know I just saw a news report in regard to a tanker that was possibly attacked, and the disinformation being shared out by our current administration. Because at the end of the day, it's about profit, and they look for any reason, any opportunity, any excuse to get our government. I'm talking about to get their hands on, oil, fossil fuels, anything else that would, create greater profit for that top 1% in corporations. So it's a huge issue. It is, and again, always for, as a military veteran, I'm for diplomacy first and the end to our military industrial complex. Take that money and push it into education and other supportive services.
All right. Well, to education, you yourself, you're an educator, a high school teacher, you said. So I'd just like to know, how would you reform the educational system? Because I know there's a lot of
Hmm.
lackluster points in it right now. What kind of things would you
Yeah.
change?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, for me, again, I think America's built upon genocide and slavery. We perpetuate white supremacy within every institution that exists. So I've even rocked the boat, even at the local level. As a teacher working with students and protest and then trying to push for change, I've been suspended numerous times because, again, it's bigger than just simply virtue signaling or sharing a theory. We're in practice, and our educational systems are broken. Even if you go on the micro level of all students, I believe we're failing all students. We're not preparing them for success after high school. They lack life literacy skills, and then we're pushing them into a predatory collegiate industry where, again, it's about profit. That's why I'm for the end of for-profit institutions. College and trade school must be free. I truly believe that. Education should be a human right, and we need to also retroactively address the inordinate amount of debt that many of our students are under. I think that withholds them from being able to truly follow their dreams and aspirations because Sally Mae is calling, looking for that $600, $700 a month. That could really hinder somebody from success and opportunity. So we have to address that. And then at the high school and middle school, public school level, I'm 100% for public school systems. I want to end all private, schooling, all school for choice, charter schools, so on and so forth, because they take and siphon money away from our public school systems. And if we truly want to improve our public schools, we have to end the privatization of our educational industry. That's extremely important because one thing that's also inequitable is our school funding models. Across the nation, our public schools are funding by property taxes. And if we understand how various communities within a district are structured, one community, could have flush funds in regards to healthy property taxes coming in, teachers making, six figures, so on and so forth. And then you have a community literally, a few blocks over, teachers making $30,000, $20,000 a year, have to work multiple jobs. Students don't have books. Every piece of paper is accounted for and every copy is counted for. So there's vast disparities in how we're funding our school institutions. So at the post-secondary level, we need to make college and trade free. We need to eliminate student debt. On the high school, middle school levels, we need to 100% get behind and support public school systems and public models. We need to address how we're funding these models. And we need to end, the privatization of our educational industries.
All right. Sticking with the educational topic, but a little more specifically, the sexual education curriculums, do you think that reforming those could in turn lead to lower teen pregnancy rates, lower abortion rates, and other unsavory numbers?
Yeah, no question. As a teacher, I think it's extremely important. We go beyond simply academics. We're talking life. We're talking social issues. Many of our students are seeking advice and support. And I think data and studies have shown unequivocally, without question, that if someone truly believed in or cared about lowering abortion rates, then education and support is the way to go. Funding Planned Parenthood, expanding and truly supporting sex education within our high schools and middle schools, so on and so forth. Because again, kids become sexually active before high school. We have to start in our middle schools and even possibly below that as well. But education and funding actually positively impacts our level of abortion rates. When people know better, they do better. But these anti-abortion individuals out there pushing this prohibitive legislation, it's not about children. It's not about the babies. It's truly about them trying to disempower women. And it's an attack on women, a war on women. So we have to stand up. We have to fight for, pro-choice, right to abortions. This should be tied directly into our healthcare system. So yes, I agree with sex education, expanding it, including it not just in high school, but in our middle schools and below, as well as, supporting expansion of education and expansion of outreach services, within organizations like Planned Parenthood that serve so many wonderful individuals within communities that goes beyond abortion.
All right. And would you support federally mandating a curriculum in order to stop the spread of misinformation in public schools?
No question. No question. I think misinformation, I don't think we necessarily understand, or maybe some people do, the impact, misinformation, or as the opposite side likes to say, fake news has on our society. It leads to so many individuals, oftentimes, operating within hate. How many individuals have been murdered, have been attacked based upon misinformation, fear mongering, gaslighting, to where, because again, at the end of the day, the important issues are about class. And I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I want to explain this. It's about class at the end of the day. If you want to talk about race or gender or any other differentiation between human beings, we have to understand those are social constructs. And the opposition, the top 1%, those individuals hoarding power and profit, if they could keep us divided in the lower class, because again, we look at an issue and say, oh, that only impacts women, or oh, that only impacts the LGBTQI plus community, or that only impacts the Jewish community. That's not my fight. We're fighting against each other. We have to recognize at the end of the day, we have to come together, build intersectional coalitions, and fight that top class, because that's how capitalism survives. It's inevitable in a capitalistic society. You have to have a top and a bottom. So we have to address misinformation. We have to recognize and understand the importance of working together and building coalitions. Even the Black Panther Party, they worked with white individuals that were poor, young patriots. They came together and worked together to fight for change because they recognize the main issue is economics. The main issue is class. So, yes, we need to address misinformation.
All right. Well, I don't want to waste too much of your time. I'll wrap it up with just one final question here. So the upcoming 2020 Democratic primary, obviously it's a big thing. It's looming over us all. Is there any one candidate that stands out to you in the crowded field?
Yeah, I think, again, we have so many presidential candidates that are throwing their hat into the race. And honestly, I believe in any democracy, it's generally healthy to have options. It's healthy to have choice because I think that enables us to push ourselves further to the left, progress further, because so many wonderful ideas are being shared, whether they truly believe in those ideas, or not. But for me, Bernie Sanders is my top choice. I believe at the end of the day, someone told me, and I know identity politics plays a role. I understand that. But when you're thinking about change, this is an analogy that I truly love. If you're at a restaurant, what's more important is what's being served, the meal, the policy, the legislation, than who's serving it, if that makes sense. So at the end of the day, Bernie Sanders, his platform has not changed. I mean, since I've known him and since he's been in office, he's been pushing for empowering the people. He's been pushing for Medicare for all. He's been pushing for expansion of social services. So I truly, I'm supporting Bernie Sanders currently. He has 100% of my support. If there's anyone else within the, I guess, the possible primary, again, Elizabeth Warren, I have issues with Bernie as well. Like, no candidate is perfect. Bernie can improve in a lot of areas also, because again, it's about policy. I'm not in love with the individual or the person. I'm not a bro for anyone, but his policy is what I'm in love with. He can improve in some areas as well, particularly getting out to Black and brown communities and truly, again, as we stated earlier, communicating and articulating how the macro, impacts on a micro level. Elizabeth Warren has been throwing out, some pretty dynamic ideas. I feel like she possibly may be backpedaling on, her stance of single payer Medicare for all, things of that nature. So that's a little bit concerning. But right now, those will possibly be the top two individuals that, I felt like I will pay attention to. I'm 100% behind Bernie right now. And then I do like some platform issues that Elizabeth Warren is sharing as well.
All right. Well, that about wraps up my questions. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience to finish this out?
No, again, I just want to say, in 2019, we're where we are because we didn't understand that we'll be where we are now. I challenge everyone, anyone watching this, listening, to really, when you get opportunity, to look yourselves in the mirror and ask yourself, what are you willing to risk and sacrifice for change? Because the issues we face are systemic. Trump is a symptom. He is not a root cause. So even if he is impeached, which he should be, again, that doesn't eliminate the root causes that led to Trump. There will just be simply other ones. So it's not enough for us to just simply vote someone into office. It's not enough for us to just, support legislation. We have to fight. We have to get our hands dirty and be boots to the ground if we truly want to make change. So that's all, I want to say. Just be willing to risk and sacrifice for progress.